Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi there, Christine. I think I can hear. I hear somebody. I think it's you.
Oh, can you still hear me? I just said hello.
Yes, I can. Oh, whoops! What happened to our? Ah, I slipped in the table, but we didn't actually meet on the 20th, right? That's a right. We didn't meet last week. Yeah, a lot of this are slowly trying to move over to this table format. Because then people don't have to endlessly type in their names, but and it converts trivially to Markdown, which
I just joined David, but I do like the ritual of typing my name.
oh no, I'm sorry.
But table is fine. Table is fine.
David, I don't appear to have edit rights to this document.
Oh well, you know what? Let's fix. That sounds like a problem we can fix. Can you slip?
That's why everything that I'm writing appears as a suggestion, not because
Okay.
I'm being very tentative.
Well, I think. Oh wait, do I not have your email? What?
So the notes
R.
suggest that if you're a member of the OSSF scorecard announce group,
Yeah.
you'll have edit access, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. So I'm not, let's see here. I might be able to fix that. Okay. The notes are currently incorrect. People in, but we can fix that. Can somebody paste in the Google group name? The
I need to get the full URL, but I've got the group email that's listed. It's the OSS Scorecard dash dev group. I'll try to
okay.
get the full
I
URL.
got it. It's somebody else already posted that in chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them, but not notify because
Yes.
because we don't need that in our inboxes. All right. I think I fixed this. However, if your access has changed, you need to click on reload on your browser to get the new permissions. So Dan, you can be
Working for me.
tentative. Okay, you can
Got
be
it.
tentative
Thank
at your
you.
choice now. Let's see. And Evan, do you need rights?
I got them. I joined the appropriate mailing lists.
Okay, very good. All right.
I can follow directions when the directions work.
Ah. All right. And I will, you know what? Sometimes directions don't work, but please just let us know and we will try to make
Yep.
the directions work.
I see that today we don't have a facilitator. David, is that you? Or is this meeting being self-facilitated?
I
It's just
didn't.
people are speaking.
Yeah, I didn't say I was facilitator. I'm happy to fulfill the role, although hopefully we won't need much facilitation. But if we need to label somebody, I mean, I'm happy to do the task. Laurent and Victor, I think we're all okay. Send cat. So if I am facilitator, usually the first thing that I try to do is what Crobe likes to call welcome new friends. So do we have any new friends today? I don't know if
I've never attended this meeting before, but I don't know if I'm a friend.
Oh. Well, we'll just call it a ritual name. Yeah, you're welcome anyway. We're glad to have you. Was that Dan? Was that you?
Oh, that was
I'm not sure. I don't think I've been on this call before, and that's part of what I want to talk about, actually. So, but yeah, I'm Dan Appelquist from Smeek.
Okay. Who else is new?
Yeah, David, I've been on this call before. I just
Okay.
haven't been in the past, I would say 2 weeks. There was a conflict with travel, but
Okay.
I've been here and introduced myself before.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. All righty. And let's see here. All right. And so I mean, if I'm going to play the facilitator role, I guess I'm going to walk through the agenda, which is, I guess, announcements. Do we have any introductions or in particular project updates, things that have, not non-trivial stuff that's changed regarding Scorecard? Okay. All right. Next item is Dan's request, which is possible to alternate call times to accommodate European time zones. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I hate to be, as I said on the Slack, I hate to be that guy. And call times are hard. I recognize that. I haven't been very active in this group, but I'm hoping that I and my employer will be more active in this community. We're heavily centered engineering-wise in Europe, not just me. I happen to be based in London, but and actually what this came out of was I had a chat with Laurent on DM about the second item that I asked to put in the agenda today. And he suggested I raise it on a call. And I said, well, I hardly ever attend the calls because they're at 9 p.m. for me, which is not usually a time I'm working. Or I try to generally not be working at 9 p.m. For regularly scheduled things anyway. And yeah, I'd like to gently suggest, and we don't have to, organize it here. Maybe we could take it to a doodle poll or something like that. But I think it would be generally good, not just for me, but all, possibly enable or be more inclusive in general to have to alternating call time.
So my teams, I'm kind of going through this exercise with a bunch of different teams, and I occasionally mention to the maintainers, this is like Thursday is one of my most contested days. I have to miss this meeting so frequently, and I don't want to because I'm like triply booked. Back in Kubernetes when I started and working on SIG release, we had a question about why the release team meetings were always in US Pacific favorable times. And there was no specific reason for it. We just continued to do it until we realized that it was because so many of the people at the time were Googlers who were working on the infrastructure. So it was just a natural artifact of that. But what I tend to do is a split across, US East, US East and EMEA times, and US West and APAC times, and that usually tends to work well.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I think where it really comes down to is scheduling's hard. So once a meeting gets scheduled, unless somebody asks, nobody wants to rock the boat. But I think this is a good time to boat rock. I will observe that many of these OpenSSF, many of the other OpenSSF meetings have already switched to like alternating times to try to make it, at least distribute the pain a little more evenly. Let's see. So I'm guessing, let's see, for 9 p.m. So I'm guessing you would want it to be earlier in the day. If we rotated it backwards by 6-8 hours, would that be better? Dan,
England is 8 hours
So-
off the Pacific.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry.
So I'll jump in. So I don't know who was talking just now, but I think there's like a time and date something meeting finder thing. I think to start we should take
Yes.
all of the time zones of the hardest part of this is when you schedule an alternating time zone meeting and there isn't someone there to support it. So I think first and foremost, we take the availabilities of all of the maintainers, overlay that in that schedule, propose some times in the doodle, have 2 doodles for the alternating times, and then go from there.
Right. Times with maintainers. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to do this. We've certainly done a lot of doodle polls to work out better times. I do agree that it would be simpler if we could identify some ranges to start with where we might vote on, and then work on the details. So that's what I'm thinking. It was, if I subtracted 6 to 8 hours ish, and set up a doodle poll with a bunch of options, would that be starting in the right direction?
I would say use the link I sent, the World Clock Meeting Planner, and start in. So I'm New York. We've got folks in the West Coast. We've got folks. It sounds like we've got folks in EMEA. We've got folks potentially in APAC, or folks that maybe are in APAC that can't join because it's that bad of a time. So I would start with, maybe we do US East, we do West Coast, we do of London, Berlin, something, and we do China, right, and see what pops up.
Okay, you want to do that right now?
Maybe we could. Now let's see.
Those of us.
We're here. Yeah.
I guess I can share my screen. Let's see if I can push the buttons. Let's see here. Too many screens. All right.
And yeah, Evan, Doodle will adjust to people's time zone as long as they
Absolutely.
have it. Yeah.
That's right. So we don't have to. In fact, I don't think that we can pick a particular time right now. I think there are people who aren't here. I'm just looking for a range, and then we can set up a doodle poll with like a whole bunch of options. But I don't. I don't want to set up 24 times 7 blocks, or 24 times 5 blocks of possibilities. Since I'm expecting a lot, simply will never work. So Washington D.C. and is one you mentioned.
We'll do
London's,
SF.
Let's see here. How do we type in here? London? No. Not use this particular tool. So
Hit search.
where's this? Okay. There we go. London. If East London is South Africa. Never mind.
Interesting.
All right. Let's see here. We can do Pacific, San Francisco. You mentioned, sure, why not? San Francisco. I would add Beijing.
I was just going to suggest that.
Yeah,
because we're gonna suffer survivorship bias of only the folks on the call are gonna right.
I don't
Yeah,
know if you want to add Israel as well. I know that they tend to have a number of folks doing security
They're gonna hit
research.
roughly the London time zone.
Well,
Wait,
We should be fine
I
there.
mean, we have a couple,
Israel?
we have quite a few engineers in Israel. And
that is
they
not
are
London.
they're 2 hours off from London.
Okay.
okay. What do I search for? Jerusalem? What's the
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
V? Thank you. Yeah, because I realize there's more than one city.
And you also have to reach out. You have to watch out for Fridays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No meetings on Fridays. Yeah.
Or as they call it, Saturdays.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That suits me fine. All right. So is this at least going to give us an idea of pain? All right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
This is why having an alternate. I mean, this is what
This is why alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, this is why
Yeah.
having an alternating thing makes sense. But I would say, David, I think the so-called golden hours when it comes to like US East Coast / Europe tend to be between 2 and 6 my time. So that's where everything is on my calendar.
When you say 2
Got
and
it.
6, what time zone are you in?
I'm in London.
London.
So
Okay,
that's
all right.
London time.
And the problem, of course, that means for San Francisco, for Beijing, it starts getting awful.
Yeah.
And that's why you
Uh,
do them on the alternate. Yeah.
And the only time that that's why in one of the other groups that I'm in W3C, we alternate our plenary call between 5 p.m. London time and 7 a.m. London time. Both of them are doable for me, but one of them doesn't work very well. The 5 p.m. really doesn't work well for Asia. The 7 a.m. kind of is painful for the for people on the West Coast, but they can do it. So it's like 11 p.m. there, West Coast time. So that's one option that could work. But
So I worked with teams in Asia Pacific and Europe. Typically, I think early morning Pacific, so like 6 a.m. I think someone suggested that in chat. Even though that's not business hours in
6
Asia
a.m.
Pacific. Yeah, 6 a.m. Pacific. Even though that's not business hours in Asia Pacific, you people in Asia are used to having meetings at those times. So whether that's India or China, that's typical of them to have business meetings at those times because they're frequently working with teams in the US. So it wouldn't be unusual, I mean, for them to attend something which is 6 a.m. here.
So here's what I would say, because the group who's speaking right now is the group of people who are actually able to attend this meeting. Let's not make assumptions on behalf of the people who cannot attend this meeting. I know that if someone made that assumption for me, I would just not attend that meeting. I think we can start with, if we're saying that this time is good for us, then maybe it's fine, right? But it looks like it's not, right? So, but the sweet spot somewhere between 12 and 7 is looking to be where we have at least one meeting that connects US East, maybe some of US Pacific and EMEA, right? Then there is a second meeting that needs to
12 to 7
prioritize people who are not here.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess what's the final proposal given this look? Well, what date? What? I'm imagining at least Thursdays, maybe Monday through Thursdays. And which times should I put up a poll for?
So we should look for for the sorry, I have a meeting chat in the way. Sorry. So for Washington, London, San Francisco, we should look for things that hit in that yellow and green area, right? For everyone, and Tel Aviv, if we can pull them in too, right? For everyone else, like one, we don't make the decision now. Well, for everyone else, we try to find a window that excludes, say, say London, for example, right? To get closer to the green and yellow for Beijing, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm still trying to look for I'm going to create a doodle poll. What am I going to put in? I mean, I could put in Monday through Thursday every 24 slots.
But
I
let's
So
plugged
to
focus
it.
be
on
clear, it's two.
Thursdays.
So to be clear,
Let's
it's two doodle polls, right? It's one to bias towards the folks who are already on this call to see if we need to
Ah,
calibrate the call time, right? And then there's a
okay,
second doodle poll to bias towards the folks who cannot be on this call because it is too late for them.
got it. Okay, and the first doodle poll is what time zone are you in? Right?
You know,
Is that
I think targeting, for this first one, if we can target something like the London, Washington D.C., Tel Aviv, if we can swing San Francisco, then fine. But those are all closer time zone wise, right?
I feel
And for
I'm feeling
simplicity's
stupid.
sake, David, for
Yes, thank you.
simplicity's sake, I suggest you stick with Thursday, right?
Okay.
Because the meeting's
And you
on
want to just
Thursday.
do all right, and you just want to
Let's
put
not-
in a 24-hour slots of which times work for you?
I don't think it's 24 hours. It's the ranges that work for those two categories that Stephen just talked about, or I think
Okay.
the Pacific US audience and the Europe US East audience.
Okay.
I put it in the note.
Basically
Thank
the
you.
first three columns right here.
Right. So if you
Okay.
so San Francisco we're maybe less concerned with them, right? What we're trying to pull in is more of the EMEA side, right? So like this first one would be like US East, London, Tel Aviv, right? And you get a time that's closer to their green and yellow windows, and then you focus on San Francisco and APAC, right? To get a time that's green and yellow for them, right? And we have maintainers that are both US East and US West. So we have coverage in both of those meetings.
All right. I'm going
Just to complicate things further, is if we don't have enough, we do have a number of folks, or at least about 2 or 3 in Sydney now that want to start working more on the project. So I was looking, I thought they would be close enough to Beijing, but they're also kind of in
Beijing, right? Oh, really?
well, they're
Wait,
about 2 hours. They're about 2 hours offset, similar to Tel Aviv and London.
Are they 2 hours closer to Pacific time?
They are. It's just that
Okay.
a lot of times they will meet early in the morning rather than late at night.
Okay.
Is kind of where it, I think, makes it.
We
more
should probably get them to just chime in on the doodle poll when it goes up.
Yeah, they should be part of the SF, the SF and Asia Pacific poll, right?
Yeah.
And the further complication, and we'll see when like time zones shift, their daylight savings moves in the opposite direction.
right.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Don't get me started about that.
It's something
Okay.
we find out in community meetings and we're like, oh, just kidding, we're gonna cancel the meetings this week.
Okay.
I'll have
What
some
hap-
time
what happened?
vortex.
What made it complicated for another working group meeting was also not overlapping with OpenSSF. Current
Yeah,
OpenSSF.
yeah.
That made it even more complicated.
Got it. All right. So two doodle polls, one to try to get the Pacific and US West, and the others to get Europe US East. And we'll basically split it off. Okay, that now I understand what you were trying to accomplish there. Okay, thank you.
No, time zones are hard.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
David, I can be very quick about the 2 other agenda points that I had put in if you want me
Okay.
to
Sure.
jump in. So one thing that this was something that somebody in my DevRel team got in touch with me about. They saw a trace from somebody who was using Scorecard in their pipeline, and the output sent somebody off to a URL which was on stepsecurity.io, which is like a commercial product. And so he raised an alarm with me and he said, hey, wait, aren't we a member of OpenSSF? Why is this OpenSSF thing sending somebody to a competitor? I don't know that StepSecurity.io is a competitor or whatever, but it kind of like, I just wanted to raise it because it reminded me of the fact that in the SCM best practices work that's happening in the best practices working group, Christine and I are working with Legitify, Noam from Legitify, who actually came up with a whole bunch of remediation steps and further information about SCM configuration options, which were contributed into the OpenSSF best practices working group. So those actually are sitting in that GitHub repo right now, and we're working with that data, and they're so one suggestion could be, if this remediation material could it be donated to OpenSSF? Is there some, so I'm happy to help try and figure out what the answer is, but I think it would be better from a vendor neutrality standpoint for Scorecard to not be sending people off to third-party commercial sites.
I would agree. I would say so. So here's the thing. Varun, who's runs Step Security, joins these calls as well. So we can easily work with him to figure out what the right balance is for this. But I would agree. I would sooner want to see it, at least to start reference the secure repo GitHub project, which is open source on their side, as opposed to StepSecurity.io, which is a company, right? And then we kind of fix the pieces as we go. But you're absolutely right.
Can you
that
point?
would be better, yeah.
Yeah, we not only can we not prevent, but we want products to use it, but it should be they're using something we developed, not we're pointing them to it unless we agree, and then it needs to be scoped and so on. Do you know where that's happening? Because I don't remember where that.
It's within our checks. It's within the scorecard checks, the remediation documentation. Yeah.
Oh,
So like pinning the say like pinning the hashes or something, right? We'll tell you like, hey, by the way, if you want something that will generate say a GitHub Actions workflow manifest that gives you pinned actions, you can go to Step Security. So usually it used to be like go to this, so stepsecurity.io/secure repo would like you could go to the UI, stick your repo in, or copy and paste your workflow, and then it would spit out a hardened workflow for you, right? And now I think there's some other redirects in place that take you to the main company site. So, but yeah, there's something to fix there.
gotcha. Okay. I mean, we're not forbidden from referring to proprietary sites, but it needs to be decided upon and agreed on and all that good stuff. And
Yeah,
we shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't be doing it.
To your point about like us or companies using Scorecard, we're incorporating Scorecard and Scorecard data into some products that Sneak is. So like,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, so definitely we're on board with that approach.
Yeah, but it's the linking over that definitely is a.
It's just where possible vendor neutrality. Obviously, you can't always be completely vendor neutral about everything, but like
So ultimately, like if say we're using secure repo, and you're like, hey, you can run this scorecard command to generate a clean manifest, right? That's a little better than directly marketing Step Security, for example, right? We're leveraging a library instead of,
So I don't want to just leave this as some discussion, although I think we're all in agreement. What can we do to turn this discussion into some actions? Can somebody kind of do the walkthrough, or at the very least, Dan, if you know ahead of time where some of these links are, can you point us, and we'll let's if nothing else, let's make an issue, point some of the problems, so at least we know what the problems are, and then start working at. Let's create an issue to ID and resolve these. Dan, would you mind creating the issue?
I'm happy to create the issue. I wanted to raise it here first before I created the issue because I didn't want to cause
Flash,
unnecessary kerfuffle. Yeah.
Sure. No. It's a
Yeah.
necessary kerfuffle, and that's completely different.
All right.
But you know what? Create the issue. If you know the specific locations, let us know, or at least the pattern to look for. That would be helpful. I mean, obviously we can do that, but the more information you give us, the more likely we're going to do a good job of the result. If that makes any sense.
Christine just dropped a bunch of details and they just dropped a search for.
Excellent. Yeah, even just here's the pattern to grep for. Yeah, what's the issue number? I can't see 12 things at once. So let's see.
Dan has to open the issue. I don't think the issue.
I haven't opened the issue yet. I have not opened it.
Okay.
I will.
You know what? All right. If you wouldn't mind, create the issue, and when you know the issue number, stick the link into these notes, and that way everybody knows to go right there. And this is not not necessarily done, but at least we've started. Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dan. This is the kind of kerfluffling we want.
Okay, and while I've got the mic, the only other thing I put on the agenda was I just wanted to put this issue or PR 3107, which is one that I made, which adds the data license. David, you already commented on that and said it had gone to LF Legal. I just wanted to pop my head up and say, yes, this is not something that just like came out of my mind. This is something like, again, I'm getting questions from my company about this, and this is why it's something important for us. So I'd like to make sure that it's clear. Anyway, what the data license is associated with the data that the API produces, not to do with the open source license of what, it's a separate licensing issue, basically, is my point. And I'm happy to clarify that with anybody at length out of band. So if anybody has questions about that or needs clarification about what I'm talking about, then please feel free to ping me. Okay.
I did send a legal JIRA request. Oddly enough, looks like if I got a response, I hadn't noticed it. So let me, and usually they do it every Friday, so I don't know why I haven't gotten a response. Let's continue on. I'm going to try to do two things at once and see if I can go find this particular issue. Because I was expecting a response before now.
Question about the issue about step security. So I guess we have like these remediation texts, and like the remediation information that we provide can kind of be like anything that's like a useful message to people who use Scorecard to scan their actions. And I think right now the text says, this is the issue. Please go to step, update it by going to this link. So we could definitely change it, or we can make this even like more modular. Like those things would be in our control to do if there was an issue. And I wonder if maybe the
way to do it in my head would be to say, okay, we know what the link is, right? And we know that it's step security / secure repo, I think is the repo, right? Is there a library that we can use that can easily derive the SHA? Like one of the things that it's doing for remediation is it's like go pin the SHAs, right? If we can derive the SHAs that should be in the repo, then we can present hey, this thing should be pinned. Here is the correct SHA to use, right? And it's leveraging the same technology. It's giving a person a direct answer instead of redirecting them to another site.
Yeah, like for example, I think Ratchet may do something similar where it can say you can replace this with you know, like here's like the SHA that you should pin it to. So yeah, I mean, like like we can change the messaging, but I thought what I understood was the conversation was that this should be a donation, which we can't, which isn't like an issue, like a GitHub issue per se, more than like a conversation that needs to be had or something.
Well,
Sorry,
I
what's the
was just,
donation? Yeah.
so I had mentioned that in the case of the SCM best practices stuff,
Ah, okay.
Legitify had contributed the information into the best practices working group. So the information that you see there in the, and I can find the link to the SCM best practices.
I mean, yes, I mean, we have an example in the meeting notes, right? So the donation of the visualizer, for example, right, is one thing where at some point in time, a group of people decided that like, hey, this is functionality that could live in Scorecard as opposed to external, right? There's another one, Scorecard Monitor, that I need to get back on. But it's really it's part conversation at some, you know, with the SEM best practices. They said, hey, this is great. Let's move this closer to where everybody's going to be looking, right? So this is, do we want to provide the functionality of what should happen during the remediation? We definitely don't want to point people externally, which is what Dan is saying. But there is a middle ground where we can provide the functionality, or we can tell people how to derive the correct answer that doesn't involve sending them to a corporate site.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
And Dan, once you open that issue, you can tag me, and I can help triage and work through it if you want.
But I will do. I probably will not do it today. Probably
No,
gonna
totally
be-
fine. Totally fine.
Yeah,
Listen,
okay,
like
great.
all the things are happening at once. I totally understand. Are we good to move to the next topic?
I think so. All right, so basically, I'm looking, by the way, at the legal JIRA, and looks like they had a couple questions, so I'm going to try to answer them right now, and hopefully we will get some answers sooner instead of later. So. All right. Okay. Just FYI, I know a little bit about their process. The legal teams review proposals and changes every Friday. So hopefully they'll get a chance to look at this tomorrow and, you know. All right, I have sent on some requests further. Dan, trying to give them some more information to try to get some answers back, okay? Let me know if I can be of any help. If they come back with any questions and you want me to help delve into the responding to the questions, I'm happy to help. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I might take you up on that, but I'm guessing not. I mean, I think they're, you know, but if I want to take you up on that, I will definitely let you know. Okay. Whoops, too many tabs. Probably ought to find where I am. Okay. So let's see here. And this, licensing of the data. So I guess David has recontacted legal, LF legal, to get more info. Okay. All right. Project roadmap.
So can we step back for a second? We didn't
Oh,
discuss
sure.
the visualizer. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I don't know who logged this on the on the agenda, but I will say that my apologies for dropping the ball. I'm the one who suggested this and reached out to the maintainer, and I need to pick that ball back up. I've been working on a bunch of policy, generative AI policy stuff internally, and that has taken up a decent chunk of my time. But I have assigned myself to it. I will reach out to Ulysses and move the ball forward. I have a note that I already sent out to the TAC about what the process should be. I don't think that we have a process per se, or the process that exists today may be heavyweight for what this is, right? So the process today is effectively to present a project to the TAC. I would consider Scorecard to be the project that already exists, and for something like Scorecard Monitor and action and the action that's associated with it to be derivative of Scorecard. So I can jump through the hoops of doing the current TAC process for the sake of including this project as part of Scorecard, but I believe there should be a lighter weight way of doing that for projects that we determine that are fit with the set of functionality that we have.
Yeah, to be fair, I think the TAC process was at least originally intended for accepting whole new projects, whole
Big
cloth.
things,
In
exactly,
other
like a
words,
same store. Yeah.
right. As opposed to, whereas, we don't normally require somebody go reset the TAC if they want to make a commit that adds to an existing project. So if this is just
Right.
adding to an existing project, I don't know that we need to do anything. If,
Well, this would be new repo, a
okay,
migration of an existing repo. So I pointed the TAC conversation. I pointed to suggesting that we pick up something lightweight like the Kubernetes process for
yeah,
absorbing donated projects, right?
I,
So effectively, what would happen is we work with the maintainers to migrate their repo into the OpenSSF org. We get a
yeah,
team going, right? We get a team going. We assign that team to admin and maintainer rights. We bring them in as part of the maintainer team for Scorecard, and
yeah.
there are some housekeeping items after that. But that's the TLDR of
Okay.
what I have in
Yeah,
my head at least.
yeah, I am definitely not big on heavyweight processes. I do want to make sure people are informed, though. Um, Scorecard's actually within the best practices working group, so I think that we need to at least get, hey, this is the proposal and the issues. I'm expecting
Yeah,
zero problems. Um, I think typically we have raised it up to the TAC, but usually that's been we have already made this decision, not a request for approval.
yeah.
But we do need to at least bring it up to the working group. I'm expecting zero issues. It's just, we need to make sure there's no surprise. The only other issue is actually a legal one. Okay, first of all, I assume they're under a normal open source license,
hmm
Apache 2, MIT.
So this is so some of this stuff gets so I linked the rules for donated repos for Kubernetes, and some of this stuff talks about CLA versus DCO, what you should do with the
Right.
licenses, headers that need to be updated, all of that stuff. So I pointed to the Kubernetes process because they've already solved a bunch of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Let,
Well,
let me
I'm
let me
talking about the existing processes. The existing
yeah,
process
yeah, yeah.
is you bring it to the working group. They say yay or nay. They, and then there's an ambiguity about whether or not the TAC has to approve or just simply be notified. And the other issue, which people don't normally see, is the LF does have to check license. If you're
hmm
Apache 2.0 or MIT, it's a non-issue. If it's a common open source license, we may have to get permission.
It's an
Usually that's not a
exception
problem.
from the GB. Yeah.
Right. You have to get exception for the GB. That's often not a problem either, but we need to do that. And are there any trademarks being asserted?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it can get intense for a larger project. I think
Right.
this is going to be low touch.
Yeah,
I
to be
believe
honest,
they're
if,
already Apache too. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. If they're Apache 2 or MIT, the copyright issues generally disappear unless somebody's claiming that they did something illegal, which we've never had happen. But and the other is trademark. So basically, we need to just ask, hey, are there patents, trademarks, any issues? It almost never actually happens, but we have to ask the
Mhm.
question.
Yeah. So let me. I've got it assigned to me. Let me run it down because I'm familiar with it at least, and I've got the
Yeah.
I've got the conversation already running with the tab.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Stephen. So
No
yeah,
problem.
the as I said, the point is just to ask the question. My expectation for this is there's no patents, there's no trademarks, don't have a separate domain name, carry forth. Um, you know, we may have to ask governing board approval, which is usually not a problem as long as it's a widely known one. If it's bespoke, that's more of a problem.
Yeah.
If it's the one license no one's ever seen.
David, don't worry. I will run it all down because I'm familiar with the process already on the governing board side.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're
All right.
good. You're good.
Okay. What's next? We did the licensing of API data. Is it project roadmap next?
Roadmap. Yeah.
Great, that one's mine. So this is an item that I wanted to both just try to make the group more aware of kind of where some of the folks who work on this project from the Google side, where they're thinking, plans that they have. It was really born out of a question that I've gotten when I've been at different conferences and I'm talking about scorecards. A common question is, what does that project roadmap really start to look like? And while, I couldn't quite sit down with everyone in the group for a first pass, what I did do is sit down with a few folks at Google to talk about what's work that we're really, planning to contribute to the project. What's other work that we're aware is going to happen. And so this is very much a first pass at that. It's something that, we'd like to build off of. You know what, I'll share my screen and just walk through quick what we've got. And I'll start first with just a couple of notes. The one kind of frame of mind that we've been taking is that this is much more of a forecast than an actual plan. These aren't hard committed dates. These are when we're forecasting certain pieces of work to get done. It would be nice if they all got done at roughly those times, but we're kind of feeling it out at this point. It's very much not exhaustive, just things that are on the radar right now, things that, we're generally planning. And then our rough criteria of, how is this not just every idea we have? It's idea plus the ability to make an engineering commitment behind it. And so without further ado, everything that fit those criteria, we put just along a 2022 timeline and then started to just throw some different things into the 2024 plus group as well. So you'll see things here like a scorecard for GitLab, which is I would say a Google assisted, but not a Google driven project, but it's a known contribution that folks at Lockheed have been working on. We've got things like structured results, which is a project that we know that we need to vet with the larger group, but it's the idea of seeing if we can make Scorecard a little bit more flexible for some organizational cases. Something that's related to that, maintainer annotations, giving maintainers the ability to, basically establish a bi-directional communication mechanism and say, I see this score, but here's some additional context that might be helpful. If you see a low score here, here's some other things to evaluate. And then, also something that would need a good, healthy amount of discussion is some ecosystems have more or less best practices that would apply more to their you know, Go ecosystem or Python ecosystem. Having really having that discussion in terms of, does this make sense to kind of try to break down scorecards a little bit more so that they fit specific ecosystems is that item. And then, you know, I know we're short on time, so I'm not going to go through all of kind of the 2024 plus items here, but you know, there's a general theme of trying to just expand features, integrations, make scorecards more actionable, which is what we mean by remediation, make them more easy to consume with better visualization and better understanding of how transitive dependencies are connected. So again, a starting point from some of the work that the folks on Google's open source security team are looking at. I think there's another whole discussion over, you know, what would be effective tooling for a roadmap building or for roadmap building across a project like this. But for now, feedback would be greatly appreciated. And if there are things that you are really planning on making sure that go into the roadmap or things that you're already planning to do, let's definitely talk about those. I think the dream would be, you know, some level of combined roadmap, which is a feature and an owner and a rough timeline of when it would happen. I think it's helpful, not just for us, but I think it's really helpful for kind of potential users of scorecards and people who might become partners in the future. I see some comments coming in. I'll have to go back and read those.
They're all jokes. No. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I've been
Actually, one serious thing, the org level GitHub projects has been helpful in terms of having a cross organization place to plan out work down to a moderately fine grained level.
Okay.
All the rest is just
plus one to that.
making fun of all the pain that is project management.
So
Yep.
Kubernetes.
The jokes start writing themselves at some point.
Yeah. So Kubernetes hat on again. My release team has worked on some automation around GitHub project boards for the CI signal and kind of release visibility stuff. It would be good to see what we could leverage from that. Definitely because we use old project boards and there was a CI signal report and we did a whole bunch of stuff and we're like, can we just make this? Can we just make this like once this is when GitHub projects was in beta, and now that it is the thing to use, we can do a bit of tweaking and see if we can pull in any of that. Two, I would say from the roadmap perspective, right at the end, you said the point that I was like going to raise my hand for. How can we abstract this into a community roadmap as opposed to a Google-based roadmap, right? And sure, we may have Googlers who would be the executors of those things that are of interest to Google in partnership with other folks in the scorecard contributor pool. But then at least if we bless this as this is a provisional community roadmap, we can present this to people who are on the mailing list, people who are in the best practices group, and say, what do you think is missing, and who's going to come in and put hands on keyboards to get it done.
We very much have a shared vision on wanting the community roadmap. The reason we started with us is because it was quick just to sit a few folks down, talk about what we knew amongst ourselves and kind of use, rather than also just raising the point of we should build a roadmap. We thought, putting something out there to just seed the discussion might help as well. But I would love to help just drive building that community roadmap. And I think GitHub project sounds like a great place to have that. I'm wondering, Stephen, if you or anyone would be willing to maybe just sit down with me for half an hour and kind of go through the mechanics of everything you've learned before in setting up the tooling, and that way we could maybe kind of share some of that.
Yeah, let's. I think I can do something later next week if that's cool. And I'll work with you offline to figure out time.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Quick notes. I applaud this. I put in the notes a couple things that I know of. On the OpenSSF side, with Naveen and so on, we're trying to raise up the test coverage to at least 80%. One challenge, of course, is that test coverage raises and then there's new functionality. So I'm not sure how we're going to win this battle, but integrating big table and the project room results, and I don't know if there's a way to do this in a roadmap, but a way to show not the big step, amazing stuff like GitLab support, but adding slowly more CI/CD systems and test frameworks and SaaS tools and so on. Maybe we stick a flag on at an end of by this point, this is what we've achieved. But
I think it's a great point. And I think that's always kind of the perpetual kind of back and forth of building the roadmap of, what is too granular and what is big. But I think integrations are huge for our adoption right now. It seems like everything you're mentioning, to me would be a roadmap item. I feel like anything that would influence how someone approaches the project, wants to participate in the project, seems like a pretty credible roadmap item. But I think if we get the community discussion started, then we can kind of build off of it from there.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, technically we're out of time. Can we get one more minute for Christine?
We can also do it async, because it's
Okay.
just like kind of a question. Yeah.
Let's do it. I've got time. Let's,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
A few more minutes.
Yeah, it's just that when I was trying to learn scorecards across all of the organizations, I was just like struggling with a few things. I like the donation thing, that's going to help. But we did get it running. And first thing I always tried is just like, let's go to BigQuery. And then I run into the issue that it's like a cost issue and we can't get to it for our company. So I was just asking, different companies may have like agreements with different places, but I was just looking for if there was any ideas of having the data other than in BigQuery.
I can answer this. So we have a transfer job that transfers data so the scorecard weekly cron runs on 1 point something million repos, and then we typically get data from store our run results in GCS, and then move them in the transfer job to a BigQuery table that's like publicly queryable. So I think this is just like we have like one format that's just like the objects, which is in cloud storage, and like one that's more queryable in BigQuery, and we just landed on these two as like yeah, I think those are the two that we landed on, but we probably could support other transfer mechanisms, or maybe like work with you to get some of that data in an appropriate format. I think maybe one of the constraints is that these things all like will run up a GCP project bill somewhere. So
Yeah, true.
I don't know how that
Just to
works.
clarify on that, when I go to api.securityscorecards.dev, is that pulling the data? Is that just another way to pull the data out of the BigQuery database?
That's pulling data from a cloud storage, I believe, actually. Those blobs that you receive from cloud storage.
Okay.
Yeah. But the transfer job takes so the API, I believe. Well, okay. Actually, I'm not sure about that, but the API is different.
Yeah, I think the open question is figuring out where we're passing costs off to the customer, and if we can not do that, right? Because I think the whole point of having this infrastructure in place and making a publicly queryable system is so that people have open access to do so. So Christine, it would be good to better understand like what formats would be useful for you to receive the data in, so we can kind of work backwards from them.
I guess
Okay.
the question is, are you trying to download the whole set, or are you trying to query specific results?
In the beginning, I was just trying to query specific result. And if the API does that, that would be fine too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we're trying to download it all at once, I can imagine creating like a summary form, you know, on 1 million repos, but if each one's only about 1,000 characters, that's a gig. That's totally doable.
Yeah, I wanted to know any of our projects there so that I don't have to run it or something like that. I just compare with other projects. That's basically what I was doing.
I'm imagining that Dan though might actually want to be able to fetch the stuff out of GCS rather than go through BigQuery and back out.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm hearing we need an issue to track if we don't have one already, so that we can gather use cases and gather acceptable data types and presentation mechanisms.
Okay, I can file one.
Thank you.
I dropped a link to a little toy that I made, which is a Go program that goes against the Scorecard API that pulls out scorecard given a particular Perl package URL. So I think that, you know, that's a kind of, that was kind of like a demonstrator, and we've done some other demonstrators that are using the Scorecard API, but I think in general that's where we would like to start developing. And you know, we don't plan to like be making live queries based on our customer queries against the Scorecard API, but what we would like to be able to do is to be able to harvest data from that, as well as incorporating the library itself. So that's but I'm happy to talk more about those plans as well.
Okay. All righty. And where does infrastructure, particularly All-Star, run? I think we've already answered that question, right, or not?
I think a little bit of it. I've been getting engaged with Sigstore, but that caused me to cast sort of a wider eye on what's running as public good instances, and a lot of these have access to a bunch of stuff. And so the next question I have is, okay, you know, how, you know, where does that configuration live? You know, how can someone go and see that, oh yeah, this is being run in, you know, a responsible
This
way?
GCP project, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, how can we? I agree. That is, and I think that is, you know, kind of, it's so important. You know, I think again, pointing at Kubernetes, we've got, you know, there is the kates.io repo, right? And the kates.io repo will show you exactly like the Terraform that's used to deploy the project, what GCP project it's living in, the access, like the IAM lists, who's a part of those lists, and pointers to all of that stuff. So it's we need to, because it is community run instances, it would be good to have clarity on exactly how and when things are running.
The All-Star one, I believe, is a Jeff question though. I don't believe, so we looked into this a little bit ago, but for us, Google internally, we run our own All-Star instance for Google repositories, and then there's also like a All-Star public instance that, like, for example, like OpenSSF stuff or Kubernetes projects will use a public good All-Star instance, but for like Google specific repositories, we have our own instance as well. And I don't think any of us have access to the OpenSSF All-Star instance, actually. So that one's kind of a Jeff question.
My question was, who does have access?
I love it. I love it.
I have access to it.
Here's an app we're recommending people install. Who's running it? What else could they do with it?
It's AI. It's AI, man. There's an AI server on it.
Are we ending on that note?
We should, Evan, again, to bang the drum, can you file an issue for this?
Sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, I'm gonna drop, but thanks everyone.
All right, take it easy, Dan. Thanks everyone for the time.
Thanks.